Thank you, Mr. Abdulaziz, for that very insightful talk. Moving on, as we are nearing the end of the day, we have our last session, a fireside chat, a conversation that will basically address if CX is really at the core of your brand DNA. I would like to welcome on stage Dina Kahiel, Regional Director, Mastercard Experience Centers, Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Mastercard. Dina is responsible for cultivating innovation and co-creation at Mastercard for the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region while leveraging technology to deliver better experiences to end customers. As EEMEA Regional Director for Mastercard Experience Centers, Dina takes customer-centered thinking and applies it to a very wide variety of business problems and across multiple industries. In this role, she has collaborated with some of the world's leading brands, including Expo 2020, PepsiCo, Siemens, McDonald's, Samsung, Cisco, Emirates Airlines, Emaar Hospitality, and NBD, to bring to life new experiences powered by IoT, AI, big data, blockchain, and other leading technologies. Next up, moderating this session, let me welcome on stage again Abhinav Mishra, Director Strategy from Martechvibe. Can we please welcome them with a huge round of applause? Over to you, Dina and Abhinav.
Thank you. Thank you, Sneha. Thank you for that. And Dina, welcome to the Fireside Chat. It's the end of the day, but a great topic according to me, and I think I'm sure our audience who stayed with us for so long are interested in this as well. First of all, how are you doing? How's it going with you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, and we'll try to keep it interesting so that people are engaged as the last session of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think when we talk about customer experience and that being at the core of your brand DNA, Mastercard is a great brand to have on stage and have this discussion with, right? So why don't we start with talking about how does CX become a core DNA for Mastercard from a global perspective and the regional perspective?
So the thing that I love about customer experience, and I'm sure many of you in the room, it is not something that we learned in school. Let's be honest, unless someone here is in like a Gen Z, I'm sure we all came from different backgrounds, right? Whether you started as an engineer, you started as a economist, a researcher in traditional fields, and somehow along the way, you found your love for customer experience. For Mastercard, as a global brand, I think what we did really well many, many years ago, actually this year marks the 25th anniversary of our Priceless campaign. This was a really great campaign. I'm sure many of you remember seeing those commercials. There's some things money can't buy in life, but for everything else, there's Mastercard. And that really helped, everyday consumers connect with a global network, a global brand. And so from a CX perspective, that was something that we did really well from the very beginning. But I think especially here in the region, and I've started with Mastercard now 10 years ago, it was really, not top of mind as a methodology, as a strategy in the way that we do business. And we discovered this through, years and years of doing pulse surveys with our customers and with our employees. And so, I'm talking 10 years ago, we realized that even though consumers see us as this really big, innovative global brand, our customers, think we could do better in that space. And just so everybody's clear what I mean when I say customers, Mastercard's customers are not technically the card holders of Mastercard. There are financial institutions mainly that are issuing these cards. There are also the merchants that power our solutions. There are corporations, there are governments. These are Mastercard customers, so we're a B2B business. And so we started, looking at these survey results and seeing, okay, so we want to be more innovative. And what traditionally started happening was, okay, let's just create really innovative ideas and deploying them into the market. Well, guess what? That's also not CX. That's not design thinking. And so we would, unfortunately, this was a huge learning for us. We would invest so much money in putting out solutions that, weren't properly, they didn't go through that rigorous methodology of prototyping and testing. And we quickly, had to learn to fail smart and fail fast. And that was a huge eye-opener when Mastercard really, in this region, what began its CX journey and embedding it as a part of our DNA, I would say around 8 years ago. And that was a real targeted strategy. And it started with the employees. It started with the DNA of the employees at Mastercard. So we interviewed our employees, and guess what? They also felt like they didn't, there was so much more room to improve innovation internally. So what did that mean? The systems, the processes that we were using were clunky, bureaucratic, and it was really a friction to being internally innovative. So I became responsible for driving innovation internally and embedding it in our DNA, and that involved a whole series of initiatives, and I'm happy to go through that. But then once that, started taking a course and the strategy started taking place, and you could really see the adoption of CX and design thinking as a methodology internally in how we designed our products, then you saw the output through to the customers, and what we put out there in the market made sure that, because we followed that design thinking, it wasn't just education anymore, there was actually also adoption. So I think, from a journey perspective, that's how I would describe, Mastercard's journey in customer experience.
Thank you. I think, and what you mentioned is very important. But, while you're talking about Mastercard's journey in the region and globally as well, and how CX has over a period of time become core at what you do for your vendors or your customers, as you mentioned. The next question is a bit personal in nature. Of course, if I ask you to talk about Mastercard, you can tell us about what you're doing. But personally, which are the brands that you are fond of, which you feel have got CX at the core or as a part of their brand DNA?
Oh, okay. So I think like many of us in the room, we can name a lot of brands that we've had terrible customer experience with. It comes down to the emotion these brands give you. That is the sole definition of customer experience, right? How did you make me feel? So if I had a really terrible and negative experience with you, I will never forget it. And if I had a really amazing experience with you, I also will never forget it. Okay, we'll talk about personal, because, Mastercard has a lot of customers, and maybe I'll touch on one where, this industry maybe isn't in the room today. How many people have tried to purchase a car recently? I don't know about you. Have you, Abhinav?
Not recently.
Okay. But guess what? The experience and how you buy a car today versus how you bought your car 10 years ago, not much has really changed. Sure, there's more data now embedded in that processes, but the actual journey of you buying a car, going to a showroom, speaking to a salesperson, there has not been much creativity in that space. And especially in the times that we're living in now, the shift has changed as well, because there's less supply and more demand. Your car salespeople are not even interested in speaking to you anymore.
I was just going to say that. In fact, that's an experience I had with a friend. We went and he was buying a high-end car, right? And we thought that we're going to get the service that we expect. And the lady was not even bothered. She's like, this is the car available. This is the price you wanted. Otherwise, it's okay. It'll sell in the next half an hour.
Yeah, exactly. And not even that. Even if you're willing to pay above and beyond the price of the car, you're going to have to wait 6 months to get the car. And there's just no genuine empathy or, desire to make me feel like I have had an amazing experience putting, for some people, like a lifetime of their savings towards purchasing that car, which is such a shame, right? And if I had to touch on the key things that would make somebody terminate their experience with you is apathy. So if your frontline customer experience or salespeople are not showing any kind of empathy towards you, and by empathy, I don't mean when you call a customer service center and they're like, I'm sorry you're facing this experience with us. I'll do my best to figure out your problem with you. It's like, okay, thank you. You know how to read from a script. That's not what I mean. I mean genuinely showing that they care about how you feel. So apathy will make you lose a customer. Friction in that process will make you lose a customer. And finally, lack of speed will make you lose that customer. So in general, shopping for cars has not been innovative. But what I recently experienced that really blew my mind away, and it was actually also my husband's first-hand experience in this as well. There is a new used car dealer in the market. Not new, they've been around for a few years, but they recently rebranded. Kavak now. And used car dealers have a huge struggle in this market. One, because of the stigma around used cars, the lack of trust there is around used cars, and just generally you're dealing with a clientele here that likes to purchase new. So how do you transform that experience to first gain the trust of somebody when you're looking to buy a used car, and completely, turning them into advocates of your brand? So they have a dedicated showroom in Festival City Plaza Mall, which is, out here in Jebel Ali. And I really recommend you guys go check it out. I'm not sponsored by this brand at all, but it really transformed the way you think of how you purchase a car. First, when you have to take an appointment, and if you don't, it's okay, they'll obviously welcome you in, but then as you step into that showroom, they walk you through first an entire expo-like experience, right? They, transform the space into, all these lights and theatrics, and they're first connecting you with their brand because they recognize people don't know their brand. So they're connecting you with their brand, how they look at cars, the A to Z of their assessment test, the technicalities they go through before you even look at a car. And then you're greeted with a dedicated salesperson. That person is completely empathetic towards you, trying to understand your needs. They, walk you through they first try to understand really what is it that you're in the market for, what are you shopping for, and they show you the range of cars, either within your budget, above your budget, even under your budget. And it really just completely, the feel of it, the connection that you have with that brand at the end of the experience is like no other. They invested so much time in understanding customers, what they're looking for, and would they come back and would they actually purchase a car from them. And so that follow through at the end of calling you up and saying, you visited our showroom recently, how was it, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I'm not getting that from any traditional car dealer here at all today. So even simple things like that was something to connect to that brand. So,
in fact, it's a very interesting thing that you mentioned, because in the morning when we had a session with some of the CX and marketing leaders, this is exactly the thing that we're talking about, is that how is it possible in today's age of technology and awareness and knowledge, how are brands missing out on such simple things which we expect out of them? Like you mentioned, that a simple follow-up or follow-through on your meeting with them, which a lot of traditional brands in the region don't do. So it's really surprising. Also, Dina, talking about that, the next point that I want to discuss about is, of course, we're talking about what brands should do to have a better CX strategy to ensure that the customer journey is seamless and personalized in a way that the customer wants. But I also want to touch upon CX burnout. When I say burnout, I think the expectations of the customers keeps on increasing day by day, right? Brands are constantly trying to meet that particular expectation. And from the point of view of a brand being pragmatic, to ensure that there's no burnout? Because we now also see a lot of brands, instead of defining the journey as the customer wants, define the journey as they want, and they build such strong brands as the customers have to follow that particular journey. So what is your thought on CX burnout, and is it a real thing?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And there's a lot to unpack there. So CX burnout is real. Maybe I wouldn't call it burnout, but is it a priority? And there's just so much that you can do in this space. And you heard throughout today all of the data and science and algorithms and predictive analysis that can go into it, which is excellent. I'm a huge advocate of this. But it gets to a point where it could be really exhausting, and you get to a so what. And especially when you're trying to drive this methodology in a large organization that traditionally did not maybe work this way. So, CX burnout, while it's real, it's also, I think it comes down to just simplifying really what are we trying to achieve as an organization. If it's being more CX in your core brand DNA, and all of the tools and data and algorithms are becoming really frustrating or just exhausting to analyze, where do you invest in what? Like you said, we have to be pragmatic. These are businesses at the end of the day, and they are trying to pay their employees. They're trying to keep their lights on. They're trying to keep a customer. And stay on top of competition, continue being innovative, innovate their product. Where do they put their money in? And it's sometimes, strategically, as you don't have the money to invest in an entire CX suite of tools. You have to put it somewhere else. And that is, that's the realistic way to look at it. So how do you drive CX with, either limited funds or limited strategic focus within your company? And that was something we also, went through as a journey. And really, it's like we always say, CX can't be a single department. It can't be somebody's role. It has to be embedded throughout the organization. And the beauty of CX is that it's human-centered approach to thinking. And whether you have engineers coding in the back or you have front salespeople, you have to connect them to the purpose and strategy of your business, which is keeping a customer. There can be no business without a customer. So we're here to serve a customer, and we need to think from a human-centered approach how to do it. And whether you're an engineer, you're human. So driving that mentality of, okay, what are your top brands that you love to use every day and why? And the key question is why. And start getting people to think of, well, this is why I have, I check this app every day on my phone. This is why I follow this individual, why they're an inspiration to me. And then you start feeding that back into, okay, well then, as a company, how do we achieve our why? And putting CX evangelists in that way throughout your organization. So whether it's the finance department or the engineers or HR department, think of who are my CX evangelists that will embed that DNA within the organization in everything that they do. And if there's something that I wanted everybody in this room today to walk away with, is first, put those people in a room together as much as possible. I think that was one huge aha moment for us. When we were traditionally designing products, we did not bring in even the marketing team. They were the tail end of that process of, here's a product, now go put it out in the market. And that was so wrong. And when we started thinking inside in to say, okay, let's bring in somebody from marketing, somebody from finance, engineers, and so on, and we bring them all together to design and co-create, then people started, understanding the methodology. They started seeing how their role ultimately connects to the customer. And so, in that methodology, there's a few exercises that I think all of us can benefit from today that I want you to take away. First one is, what do we do that makes us great? And you can't say things like great customer service, because guess what? Your competition will say that too. No, really, what differentiates you from your competition? And really hone in on that and capitalize on that. We need everybody to know this about us. So that's number one. Number two, what are my competitors doing that I'm not so good at? And that's why people are going to my competition. And in some cases, you might need to copy what they're doing, but I really recommend you making it your own. But it really depends. So what is it that, that's driving people to your competition? And third thing, and I really love this method, is what are other industries completely unrelated to yours doing that have really won the case of amazing customer experience or increased revenue adoption or transformation of their processes. And that one, single-handedly sometimes really disrupts and advocates the kind of, crazy ideas that we're looking for to shift, the ideation that's happening in the room.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and that's the reason why when we do something like this as well, we have people from cross industries coming together on panel in the audience, because as you mentioned, there are key things that you can take away from every other industry and not only from your industry. Having said that, we're out of time, but thank you so much, Dina, for joining us. Thank you so much for speaking your heart out, and I loved how you gave all the answers with honesty. Also, when it came to about your brand and your journey, things that you did right, things that you learned from, I think that was the best part. But thank you so much. Please give a big round of applause for Dina.
Thank you.